Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Peter Murphy begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Tasmanian health authorities are ramping up their response to coronavirus as more cases are reported nationally. A special facility has been set up in Launceston which recorded a positive test earlier this week. For more on this story, our reporter Garth Burley joins us live from the LGH. Garth, good evening. What new measures are being introduced tonight?
Well, good evening, Pete. Authorities have set up the state's first respiratory clinic here outside the LGH as part of the ongoing response to coronavirus. Now, it's a mobile clinic supplied by the RFDS to keep up with demand for testing for the virus. It comes after the first positive case was confirmed here in Launceston. Now, one reason for it to be a standalone service is so potential carriers aren't bringing the virus into areas where there might be vulnerable people, such as medical clinics or GP areas. It's important to note that this is not a walk-in service, so anyone in Tasmania who's concerned they may have contracted the virus is urged to contact public health before they come in, and they'll be assessed and appropriately directed. So Pete, as it stands tonight, there's one confirmed case here in Tasmania, and that man remains in a stable condition.
A Launceston man has lost an appeal against his conviction and sentence over the murder of his friend. Anthony Colin Finnegan had argued someone else moved the victim's body and his personal circumstances weren't taken into account by the court.
This was the scene at Summerhill in 2016. A unit cordoned off after emergency services discovered the body of Peter John Fitzgerald. His friend Anthony Colin Finnegan was charged with his murder in 2018, receiving a 21-year sentence with a 14-year non-parole period. Finnegan has been appealing his sentence and conviction, with the case heard by the Court of Criminal Appeal for final submissions. Mr Finnegan's lawyer told the court her client was heavily intoxicated by methamphetamines and alcohol when the crime was committed, and that he had 3 pins, metal pins, holding his knee and was on crutches. She said her client admitted to striking Mr Fitzgerald multiple times, but another person moved the body and therefore could have ultimately caused his death. He's not Hulk Hogan, he's not WWF, he doesn't have the strength on earth to move the body. Finnegan's lawyer also argued the 21-year sentence was manifestly excessive and didn't take into account his mental health and trauma from childhood abuse. After a short break for deliberations, Chief Justice Alan Blow said the appeal would be dismissed because there was no miscarriage of justice in the conviction or sentencing. The reasons for the decision will be published at a later date. Ebony Ablett, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania's lawmakers have announced a crackdown on one-punch attacks, saying the cowardly crime should never be accepted. It's a plan that's been welcomed by hospitality workers who often see violence unfold firsthand.
Police patrolling the busy nightlife. While most people enjoy their night out, incidents still flare up. But new legislation could crack down on violent behaviour, focusing on one-punch attacks.
It's just all about safety in our community. So it's not necessarily things that happen in or around pubs, it's just the fact that it can happen in the community anywhere with people for a variety of reasons doing silly acts.
The issue has risen to prominence with several cases where victims were struck in the head just once, causing serious trauma or even death. And while the brutal incidents are not common in Tasmania, they can happen.
They have had some incidents on the mainland and they've been very well publicised. What we don't want to see is an incident in Tasmania, because one person that's injured or killed is one too many, and we want to make sure we're on the front foot as an industry. If
passed, the new laws would close a legal loophole, which currently allows offenders to avoid conviction if they argue the death was an accident. It's a move long called for by those who often witness the incidents, our hospitality workers.
We just want to make sure the message to anyone out there is go out and have a good time, whether it's day or night, but don't do anything stupid. You know, protect your friends, make sure they don't do anything stupid, but drugs and alcohol are no excuse for doing the wrong thing.
We want to make it absolutely very clear that if you're intoxicated or if you're under the influence of drugs, that is not an excuse when it comes to our one-punch legislation.
The laws are set to be debated later this year. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania has been caught up in an ugly stoush between the toll transport company and the union. The fierce contract negotiations stalling freight movements to and from the state, and local businesses are starting to feel the effects.
Caught in the crossfire of a battle forged on Melbourne docks 400 kilometres away, the war between toll and the Maritime Union bringing Tasmanian businesses to their knees.
They are looking to stand down. They're looking to stop work until they can have this rectified. They simply cannot get their product off the island at this point in time.
The transport company and the union butting heads over new contract negotiations, leading to exports out of the state becoming anchored.
This is a bullying tactic being used by a union, and again, to use a state as a bargaining chip, through a negotiation like this is appalling.
Homegrown producers are becoming increasingly desperate. One is experiencing 8 semi-trailer loads of backlog. As cool rooms across the state become overloaded, businesses with nowhere to store products could soon be turning to the bin.
If you can't get into a cool store in early autumn in Tasmania, you're going to be in trouble with your product.
The union has refused to comment on the issue before it's brought before the Fair Work Commission tomorrow. Toll is seeking an application to end further industrial action. The government is hoping for a swift resolution and says each day it continues is another blow for local industries.
Let's get a deal here so that Tasmanians are not compromised.
Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
The much-anticipated opening night of Spiegeltent has been delayed with a hold-up on crucial equipment. Our reporter Ebony Ablett joins us live from the Hobart waterfront. Ebony, good evening to you. The headline show was meant to be tonight. What's happened?
Pete, we understand the set pieces for Blanc to Blanc, one of the main shows here, has been delayed from interstate. It's believed the equipment was held up at customs during transit. We understand the freight has now been released and actually arrived on site here late this afternoon. Now the show is a very technical one, involving an elaborate set, acrobatics and stunts. So organisers say safety is the priority and they didn't want to compromise opening night.
Because the show is so high impact and we are so safety conscious, we just decided to take the foot off the accelerator for a little minute and then pump it up for tomorrow night.
So opening night will now be tomorrow and organisers say guests will be reaccommodated. They're also reassuring the rest of the bumper 3-week program, including music and comedy, is going ahead as planned. And Pete, there are still tickets available for some shows.
A driver has been lucky to escape without serious injuries after his car flipped on its roof following a crash in Launceston. Crews rushed to the busy Midland Highway just before midday to find the Nissan Patrol with all 4 wheels upside down in the air. The clean-up efforts forced traffic to a crawl for around half an hour. Meantime, authorities are also investigating if wet weather played a role in a single vehicle crash on the East Tamar Highway near Longreach early this morning.
Tasmanian Mayor Mystic Journey has made her first public appearance in 5 months. The All-Star Mile champion lined up for a trial run on a soaked track in Hobart. She finished second to Trojan Storm over the 900-metre distance. Trainer Adam Trinder is preparing Mystic Journey for the Group 1 William Reid Stakes at Moonee Valley in a fortnight. State League netballers are raring to go for this weekend's season opener. Defending champion Cavaliers is welcoming 3 new players after the side's defensive core went out on a high after claiming last season's title over the Northern Hawks. Captain Shelby Miller says the group's mentality hasn't been changed by the win.
We haven't really thought about it all that much. I think particularly because we've got quite a new team. We've got new faces and we've lost a fair few from last year's premiership team. So new year, new bunch and new goals for us.
After being knocked out in straight sets in last year's finals, Arrows has made changes of its own.
Definitely exciting to have a new coach. It's a much needed shake-up, I think, for us. We've been a bit complacent the last few years, so our pre-season's been longer than others.
Rounds 1 and 2 of the season are being played in Hobart and Kingston. Hobart's Eddie Ockenden is set to become Australia's most capped hockey player this weekend. If all goes to plan, Ockenden will equal Jamie Dwyer's mark of 365 matches tomorrow night before setting the new record in Game 2 against Argentina on Saturday. The Kookaburras practiced in Perth today ahead of the Pro League fixtures.
Just the guys that I've been able to play with and the friendships and my best mates I've played with in this team. So I think that's really cool and they're the sort of things that I've been reflecting on, and I think it's a special team and I love being part of the Kookaburras.
The 32-year-old debuted for the Kookaburras in 2006. A Tasmanian light aircraft pilot can claim to have the sharpest landing skills in both Australia and New Zealand. Hobart's Peter Waite flew home with gold after achieving a perfect score at a Trans-Tasman competition. With 25 years of flying experience, Peter Waite confidently controls his Cessna 172. So much so, he can nail the perfect landing and has the trophy to prove it.
The bonus is a 50-point box on the runway if you hit that with your mains, which I did.
This is how the spot landing challenge plays out. After completing a circuit in the air, pilots must try to touch the ground as close to the mark as possible.
Even on the ground, the square looks quite big. It's quite small when you're doing that sort of speed on approach to land.
Crosswinds and changing conditions can be a pilot's peril. The flying gods have to be smiling down on you too.
You can always get close to the 50-point box most of the time, but to actually get on it is just pretty much some sort of element of luck on the day.
His win came at the recent Wings International, a premier aviation challenge which alternates between Australia and New Zealand each year. Trans-Tasman pride aside, the aviation aficionado says the thrill of flying is just as satisfying as any victory.
Flying's a sheer fun. I've enjoyed it for many, many years. I only encourage everyone in Tasmania to sort of give it a go. I mean, it's quite addictive.
Good evening everyone. Wet across most of the state today with Launceston 20 degrees, 19 in Burnie and Devonport and Hobart 18. Flinders Island, the state's top with 21 degrees, King Island, St Helens and Friendly Beach is 19 and 18 in Ouse and Smithton. Across Tasmania, a broad area of mid-level cloud obscures the state for most of the day. And across the rest of the country, low-level cloud can be seen over Western Victoria and southern South Australia. Convective cloud is scattered over Northern Territory and northern Queensland. Tomorrow's chart shows a cold front to the east of the state and troughs along the western, northern and eastern coasts of the country. South to southwesterly winds tomorrow, 15 to 25 knots, reaching 30 knots about the east. And there is a strong wind warning current from the northern tip of Flinders Island to Low Rocky Point, including Banks Strait, Franklin Sound, Frederick Henry and Norfolk Bays, Storm Bay and the Channel. A minor flood warning is current for the South Esk River, while a moderate flood warning is current for the North Esk River. A flood watch is also current for the northeast and east coast catchments. Hobart and Huonville 19 tomorrow, Campania 20. In the north, Launceston, Devonport and Georgetown all partly cloudy and 24. 23 in Burnie and Wynyard and Strahan reaching 17. 21 in St Helens, Swansea 20 and 19 in Port Arthur. The UV tomorrow is high and very high across the state. Now on to Saturday, showers about the west, south and northeast. Fine on Sunday apart from light showers, and on Monday mainly fine with light winds. Partly cloudy in Perth and Adelaide tomorrow, 26 in Canberra and Sydney 28. And it's currently cloudy across the state, Hobart and Launceston both 19 degrees and Devonport 18. And that's the weather tonight.
And that's all our news for now. I'll be back later with some updates. Thanks for joining us this evening. Good night.